Danny, man, it's so cool
Senor.
to have you here. It's been a while since I haven't seen you.
Likewise, man. Very good to be
What
here.
have you been up to, man? Doing some traveling?
Yeah. I took a kind of a pilgrimage, a trip of a lifetime to Scotland.
Wow.
So I got to go to the motherland of whiskey, which was great. I feel like I've been working with whiskey for so many years that it was just amazing to actually be at the source.
Yeah.
And we'll talk a little bit about that later, but it was spectacular. The access to like the whiskey making team and really pulling the curtain back and just really seeing everything was amazing.
What did you find that was unexpected? Like, from everything, the idea that you had of Scotland and what to expect in distilleries and with the whiskey and things like that. What did you
Oh, there was
find
a lot.
that just shocked you? Yeah.
There was a lot. I tried a lot of times when I travel, I try and do some research,
Yeah.
but I try and let surprises happen.
Sure.
Otherwise, it's too much.
Right.
So, a lot of people told me the food was not great in Scotland. I heard that from a lot of people.
Yeah.
Food is all right.
Did you have haggis?
Every day.
You had haggis every day?
Every day.
You're kidding me.
Loved it.
Wow.
I've already had haggis.
Yeah.
It wasn't the first time, but the haggis there was spectacular.
Yeah.
And so the food was great. The breakfast was amazing. In most of Scotland, especially where we were, it's very rural. So what we would call organic food,
Yeah.
they call food. Like that's
Really?
just
Yeah, right.
So
That's the way they eat.
that's how they've
just their
always
food.
ate. So the eggs have bright orange yolks, and the pork is all natural and original like Berkshire, and the haggis is excellent. So I don't usually have breakfast when I'm here. I'm fasted through the morning and I just have my coffees and stuff. I don't really eat breakfast.
Yeah.
So there I had one breakfast and I said, "Oh, I'm on vacation. Guess what?
You're a breakfast guy?
I love breakfast,
Yeah,
but
me too. Yeah.
it's hard to not eat it, but I feel better when I don't eat
Yeah.
it." So over there, it was the people that know me, they're like, "You're having breakfast?" I'm like, no. I'm going all the way.
Yeah.
2 to 3 eggs, haggis,
Every day.
beans,
haggis.
every day. Beans, croissants,
Yeah.
just the opposite. So, yeah, I put on the proper 10 pounds that I was supposed to. I had a blast. Also, speaking to the whiskey, I knew a lot of the story and I knew a lot of the facts, but when you're there, it's mind-blowing how handmade and artisanal
Yeah.
it really is. When you think about this global brand with millions of liters,
Very
and
rustic too. Huh? You don't
just-
see high tech stuff. You see
It's limited.
thermometers and clocks that you're seeing.
That's it.
Gauges and
That's it.
Nothing,
It's very
not a lot
limited.
of digital things going on over there. You know?
And it's
Not in this industry.
it's really the polar opposite. So when you see it how the stills are, where they actually manufacture the whiskey, state of the art. Spare no expense,
Right.
the best of the best.
Right.
The minute it's distilled, it goes to another like system. Once it's going into those casks,
Yeah.
that system is hundreds of years old.
Does Macallan still use?
It's amazing.
They're using the system where the barrels are on these. When they're actually pulling them out, pulling the whiskey out of the
Sure,
barrel. The
sure.
barrels are on these tracks with holes in the middle, like a thing in the middle, and
Basically,
that's how they pour it
Sure,
out,
that's
and the
how
whiskey goes into.
Sure,
Really?
they still
Yeah,
do
they
that.
still
Not
do.
only that, the craziest part is when we went to Spain and we saw the way the casks are actually made.
Yeah.
This is where, this is the nuts and bolts of it. Whiskey, in general, gets the majority of its flavor from that aging process.
The aging process.
Whereas wine is like 2/3 comes from the grape, 1/3 comes from the aging. Whiskey's the opposite.
And the color
100% natural.
on the good stuff. Macallan's color comes 100% natural
Right.
from that wood
100%.
cask, which is they age them in Spain, and in wine or sherry or something like that.
That's where the process is amazing. The bodegas that are making these barrels barely use anything electrical or mechanical in most of the process, if not all of it. So when you're in there, they do have some machines that cut very precisely and whatnot. But aside from that, remember those barrels have no nuts, no bolts, no glue.
Okay.
That's all natural, and it's just playing with water and fire, the way they've been doing for hundreds of years. And when you're standing there, you realize it, and you go, "My God, there's a handful of people. There's a handful of people that actually make the flavor profile that Macallan will eventually become." And once you see how handmade and artisanal, then when I come back here, and a buddy of mine will say, I went to the liquor store and they were out of the 12. And I go, dude, I mean, do you know? It's in my head. Now I understand. I'm like, you
It's
know,
not an iPhone.
Jose in Jerez might have had the day off, man.
Yeah.
Give him a break. He'll get you the whiskey. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, but let me tell you something. As a Scotch drinker myself for many, many years, there's few places, at least that I travel to, that I don't find Macallan. You guys have
We have become that. We have become that.
Yeah, because you started off. I mean, what was it? I think it was a teacher who started Macallan, right?
To an extent, the brand's been around a long time, but in its current state,
18 something. It was a teacher named Alexander Reed who started Macallan.
very good.
He was a
Alexander
barley
Reed.
farmer as well, and
Sure,
he started
sure.
Macallan. I know my Scotch a little bit,
You
man,
do?
because it's what
and I know
drink.
you've been there and you're passionate
I
about
have
it.
been to Scotland. I went with a different group, but I did visit Glenlivet and I visited the Chivas
The
brothers.
Chivas brothers.
Yeah.
Another funny thing is when you're in Scotland, you do realize something. In this country, and in other places too, but especially in this country, we are very brand loyal.
Yeah.
You ask people what they drink, and they proudly tell you what they drink.
Yeah,
I drink this. I don't drink that. I drink this.
Yeah.
I'm more into this. I'm more into
I'm a
that.
Macallan guy.
I'm a
That's what
Macallan
they
guy,
say.
right?
Yeah.
When you go to Scotland, they're like chefs with their whiskey. They make their whiskey. This is their version of whiskey. This is the best whiskey that they want to make for them. This is their house style. But they love all the others too.
Yeah.
So it's almost like a chef that only cooks French cuisine. Do you think that every time he goes out he eats French?
Yeah.
No, he's a lover of food. So he tries it all. So over there, if you say, well, I drink Macallan, but I don't drink this, or I drink this, but I don't drink that, they go, you're crazy. They're all good.
Yeah.
They're all so many great whiskeys.
They're all so many great
There's
whiskeys.
so many
They're
different
all
whiskeys,
from
right?
there, from Scotland, and and you've got the different areas. Like Macallan is from Speyside, which is the Highlands, but you got lowlands also as well.
Yes.
And I guess in certain areas, Macallan's not a peaty whiskey
we don't
at all.
really peat it, right?
No,
We don't.
but other areas, because of the
Very
climate,
proud of the
because
peat.
of the ground,
Right.
because of everything, comes a little bit stronger, or a little that flavor of the peatiness. I mean, I drink all of it,
Me too.
but
I've always been a big fan of whiskey in general.
yeah, and I try it all and I drink it all, but you have your favorites at the end of the day. You have your favorites of what you like and this and that. And I love the fact that wherever I go, whatever bar I'm at, Macallan is there. So it's like I can go to my Macallan and I know that I'm going to have something that I like, And if it's not, I'll try something else, and sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't. But it's very cool, man.
It's for me, it's like having a favorite band. I mean, if you have a favorite band, you can have one, but you can't listen to it all the time without true appreciation. To appreciate Macallan completely, diversify.
By the
try
way, you want a
things.
Cuban coffee?
Speaking of which,
yeah.
number one,
Would you like
yes,
it? Yeah?
I would love a Cuban coffee.
I got you, man.
You already have?
I got you.
He's good.
I
This
got
guy's
you.
good.
I got you.
So
It's the Cuban Coffee Effect, my friend.
brings me to another point, a much more interesting point. The Cuban Coffee Effect. Tell me how you came up with that.
You know what? I don't even know. Talking with my son about what about a podcast, and let's do this, and how cool would it be? And it's just basically, a lot of friends of mine that I'm thinking I want to interview, I want to talk to, I want to talk about cigars. We're big into cigars. I want to talk about fashion because of the magazine. I want to talk about spirits, wines, food. Tomorrow we've got Beto Di Carlo from Fratellino is coming in. He's a character,
Nice.
Italian-Argentinian background, so he's a character, and he's
Of
a
course.
very flamboyant kind of guy.
Yeah.
So, and I said, what are we going to call it? And I said, there's something in our culture that is so unique that I know of, just for us. And it's that little colada, that where you're going to go visit your doctor, you're going to go visit a friend, you're going to go to the hair, you get a haircut. You're bringing mechanic. You go to the mechanic. I go to my mechanics all the time, and I'm like, mechanic, this is going to be a big bill, probably, that something breaks down, or one of the things breaks down in the kids' cars or something. So you go to mechanic, so you got to soften everybody up. So you walk in with your colada and your 5 or 6 little cups, and who wants coffee? And all the mechanics stop and come to where you're at, and you're serving them all coffee. Now you've kind of broken bread. Now you've got to talk to them.
Completely.
Now they treat you a little nicer, a little better. They open up to you. They go, "He's a good guy. He brought coffee to us, this and that. Hey, you guys," and halfway through, "You want another colada? I'll go get another colada," So coffee for Cubans is this, it's kind of like the cigar. It's kind of like it's a social thing, you know. So I said, this is what this is going to be. Sitting down and talking to Danny about Scotch, and talking to Arturo Sandoval about music, and talking to Carlito Fuente about cigars. It's a social thing. It's not, you know, it's not scripted. None of this is scripted. This is just
Right.
something. I mean, you and I talked about a total of maybe 30 seconds about, hey, what are we going to do? We're going to bring some scotch. We're going to
Boom,
try
boom,
it,
boom,
this
boom.
and that. Perfect. Let's go. So everything
way
is
to go.
off the cuff,
Yeah.
and that's the way it is, man. With the coffee, you know, that's the way we are. So it's part of our culture. And I said, this is going to be great, you know.
Well, ironically, if you were to ask my family, friends, or coworkers, and they heard you say that, they would say, "Of course, Danny's doing this podcast," because that's one of my mantras.
Really?
I have not only said that to my Cuban coworkers and counterparts, but my non-Cuban coworkers and counterparts. This town runs
Yeah.
on coffee.
Yeah.
You don't do business in this town without coffee.
Yeah.
It is the way you start a conversation without it being clumsy or being too overly sharp or businesslike.
By the
It
way,
sets a
the
pace.
sugar's right over there. If
Oh,
you
I-
want sugar, or you drink it just like
I'll
this.
do it just like
You're
that.
just like me, man. That's the way.
I didn't used to, but now I can taste it. And then the other thing is, this is the $1 million question. You ready? I'm gonna throw a curveball. First curveball. How do you feel about the concept of a media colada?
I've never really seen the purpose of ordering the media colada,
This is why we're friends.
because it's a
This is why we're friends.
small thing like this. Obviously, there's people that go in there. I didn't even know why a restaurant would offer it.
I
Why are
agree.
you going to offer a media colada? Colada's a small little thing.
Exactly.
You give it, you drink another one, it's over, and you throw a little bit away, whatever.
I always thought
What's
the
a colada
media
cost? $1?
$1 or something.
So you're asking for a media colada for
So-
what?
Well, what I don't understand is if everything that you said is true, and I believe it to be true, a colada is a social event.
Yeah.
It's to be shared.
Yeah.
A media colada is selfish in nature. So I feel that the communists tried to infiltrate Miami somewhere in the mid-90s, and one of the ways they did it was to get this media colada on different menus to see if they could separate us from our culture.
That's
It
awesome.
failed,
It's
so
true.
most of it is gone.
Yeah.
But to this day, I ask any of my family or friends, if I walk up somewhere and I go, un café or colada, and they go, colada or media colada? If I can, I'll leave.
Yeah.
Because
Now,
they're watching us. We
When
gotta get out of there.
when you drink, when you get a full colada, like everybody should,
Mm.
and you drink half of it, what do? You cover it back up. You put a couple of cups on top of it, and you let it sit there.
Right.
5 minutes later, somebody's going to walk in through the door.
You know it.
And you're gonna tell them, hey, I just get a cafe. I just brought coffee, and oh yeah, coffee, it's fresh. Boom, and it's this media colada thing doesn't work.
That's
You
what
know?
I mean. And if they say there's only media colada or colada, because sometimes they do that, then I'll say, really? Then I'll go, okay, I'll have a colada, and then I'll treat everyone else to coffee.
Yeah. Right.
Is that really what
Right?
you want to do? I'm
Yeah.
still going to share it.
Yeah.
When someone is born, what do you take to the hospital?
Colada.
When someone passes away,
Yeah.
what do you take to the funeral home?
Colada, absolutely.
It's
Everything.
just-
That's why I called this the Cuban Coffee Effect, because today is going to be
100%.
a little bit more like the Macallan Scotch effect,
Cheers.
but that's okay. That works as well here, but today
I
it's the
agree.
Cuban Coffee Effect. And let me tell you, here we do it with an espresso and stuff. You like the La Llave? Have you ever
It's
had
delicious.
this?
Oh, yeah.
It's a beautiful family. I've mentioned it before. It's a beautiful family from about 150 years in the cigar in the coffee making industry
Really?
since Cuba. Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
And I was
I didn't
lucky
know
enough
that.
to meet Lisette. They're friends of Arturo's in California now. They've settled in California. These guys make all the coffee for McDonald's. They're called Gavinia. And Lisette came here to Miami.
Oh, Gavinia, I know that name.
Yeah, she
I
came
know
to
that name.
Miami, and I interviewed her, and we did a couple of nice things in the magazine and everything, and she sends me this coffee, and let me tell you, man, I don't drink anything else but this. And by the way, my father, who was around, he passed away over 10 years ago. When I would buy him his Cuban coffee and take it to him, he wants, I want La Llave, I want La Llave. None of the other stuff. He wanted La Llave. So this stuff is good, man. It's really good.
I've always enjoyed it. I find it to not it's not amargo at all. That's
I
just
love
a
it.
nice rich.
Yeah.
I've always liked it.
All right,
That's
so let's
funny,
get back
man.
to it's kind of cool. I mean,
I love the idea.
yeah, everybody's loved it so far. As a matter of fact, we just got so many people. Hey, what's going on with this podcast thing, the Cuban Coffee Effect? And we haven't really done any publicity for it yet. It will, But
Right.
I got a lot of feedback and stuff already from people.
That's awesome, man.
So talk to me. What'd you bring here? You brought some good stuff. We got a little bit. We
Yeah.
covered a lot of the history of Macallan, right? Some of the stuff.
Yeah,
Got
I
some
mean, we
notes
can
here,
go
but-
on and on and on about that stuff. I find some of it to be as entertaining, and as others are maybe not as entertaining. But what's always kept me close to this industry is that the history of the world is really in these bottles.
Yeah.
And there's so many different global events that have happened that in one way or another, from world wars to prohibition to, they've all shaped the way we drink whiskey. And so it's kind of cool, even if you're not a big drinker, to just kind of nose and taste it, because there's just so much diversity, especially with a brand like this where it's so handmade that imagine like with our European oak being about 100 or more years for it to actually mature. Imagine if it was a sapling and you came and you were checking on it. I came and I looked and it was growing and it was doing well, and I drew like a little line with chalk. And then 50 years later, I'm gone. My son is there and he checks on it and he's like, perfect. He draws his line, right? 50 years go by, my granddaughter comes.
Oh, wow.
She says, it's ready to cut. In honor of my grandfather who's gone, it's been 100 years. We're going to cut the tree down, or we're going to make this into barrels. How in the world could the top of that tree age the same whiskey as the bottom? In a truly handmade artisanal spirit like this,
Wow.
that same tree, the same tree with the same whiskey, will actually produce completely different variants. So in what we have, which is 270 to 280,000 casks aging at any given time, you have all these different varieties within what we have.
Well, that brings me
which is
to
amazing.
a point. That brings me to a point. It's a single malt. But explain to people a little bit because people sometimes think it's a single malt that comes all from the same barrel or
It's
everything.
actually a very popular misconception.
Yeah.
Single malt whiskey simply means from a specific grain, a malted grain. In this case, barley, malted barley. So it doesn't mean it's a single barrel. Now there are single barrel, single malts,
Single barrels, yeah.
and that's
That's
one
different.
barrel.
That's different.
Sure.
But the more popular single malts out there, they're not all. It's not.
No, on the
but they're
contrary.
usually from the same distillery.
Sure.
That they do
So
because
it
that's
is-
how they control it.
It's made and aged in the same place, but it is not from the same barrel. And the way I explain it to
Right.
people, for example, with the Macallan 12-year. So everywhere in the world that you travel, and you see that bottle of Macallan 12-year sherry oak, it has to taste exactly the same.
That's what really
Exactly
gets me.
the same.
How do you do
That's
that?
the
How
art.
do you continue
There's
that
the science, there's the
consistency
history,
throughout?
but that's the art.
Because you
The
just
art-
said it. The trees are different. The barrels are different. The water is different from different times. The world changes. The climate changes.
everything.
Some years are good because I know, like in the cigar industry, yeah,
Very similar.
very similar. And I think the coffee industry is very similar. It all depends on climate and the weather and temperature. There's years that the tobacco gets a lot of rain and it's a little tougher to work with, and there's years that doesn't get enough rain. I mean, you're dealing with the elements here. How
Yes.
do you control that and still have the consistency that when I go get an Opus X and serve myself a Macallan 15, it's the same flavor that I tried 2 years ago.
Yeah, so all of our age statement whiskeys like that you're talking at thousands of different casks have to be nosed and vatted together to make sure that whiskey tastes exactly the same. So that's why the age statement is the youngest whiskey in the bottle. In many cases, they have to have older whiskeys in the bottle to get that flavor profile down perfectly.
It's an art.
Right, and then when you talk
Master
about
blenders, right?
Yes,
They call them master blenders.
yeah.
Same in
So
the cigar industry.
Our whiskey making team, when I was in Scotland, this was one of the highlights. I got to walk in to the team actually going through their process, a weekday,
nice.
And they're just going through their thing. And they are nosing hundreds of whiskey samples, and each one is from a different cask. And they're waiting.
They don't taste it.
They really don't.
They
To be
just-
honest with you,
yeah.
they don't.
Did you do the 9 o'clock in the morning from the barrel drinking whiskey?
No.
I did that.
You did that?
Yeah.
Which one? Which
And
distillery?
I think it was I don't know if it was one of the Chivas brothers. So I think it was Glenn Levitt,
Mm.
and I think that, and if I remember correctly, I got pictures and all kinds. We did the whole story in the magazine on it back then when I went. They give you these long tubes, which I don't know what the purpose of that is. You probably do, and then they get the barrel. They this hasn't been bottled or anything, and they just open it up and they fill this thing up. And I'm like, I'm supposed to drink it from here, and I'm drinking. I'm going, but all this whiskey is going to get wasted because once I drink, nobody else is going to drink from here. Drinking this at 9 o'clock in the morning, delicious though, because you eat up all the experience, and it's just amazing. We went when I went, I stayed in the Chivas Castle.
You told me that's amazing.
And I went with a fun group. I went with a lot of Spaniards that were in the group, and I went with Beto Cueva. He's a Chilean rock and roll star. Him and his wife, beautiful people, wonderful people. The end of the nights, after all our tours and things like that, we would come to the castle, and they had a library. And in that library, they had just wall-to-wall scotch. And they just said, so we'd do karaoke, watch, soccer or whatever on TV. But they were like, you just grab the bottle you want to taste. And imagine, you're standing there and you're looking around and you go, I want to taste this one, I want to taste that one. Every night, I can't tell you,
Of course.
2, 3 o'clock in the morning, every night, everybody is like destroyed, stumbling all the way back to their room because we just were eating it all up, man. I mean, it was so much fun. It was so much fun, and to do it there, and then of course, like everything in the UK, I would go up and I stayed in the tip top room, And the castle's, it's not huge, but it's pretty nice, beautiful sceneries. You wake up, you see the water stream, which is the water they use for the whiskey, and after every day I'd walk down for breakfast. The ladies that ran the kitchen and ran they served you and this and that would ask me, "How did you sleep?" I go, "I slept great." Okay. And then they kept asking me, and I said,
I know why.
By the 4th day, I go, why is everybody asking me how I slept? I'm sleeping beautiful. I'm sleeping great. She goes, oh, last person that stayed in that room in the middle of the night went running out and said there's no way they're sleeping in that room anymore again because it was haunted.
Oh, boy.
Everything is haunted, apparently over there. I said, well, listen, I in the condition that I end up at 3 o'clock in the morning, it can be as haunted as it wants. It ain't going to wake me up, and I ain't going to feel it anyway, so whatever. Maybe I saw something, maybe I didn't, but if I see something haunted, I'll just go, please, leave me alone, I'm going to sleep,
I was in the same boat when I went. I got to stay there.
Oh, wow.
I actually got to...
What is that? Is that the...
So that's Easter Elke's house.
That's beautiful.
So that is the Jacobean Manor that is at the kind of at the heart of our story. It's our spiritual home,
Right.
And so this was finished in 1700. It gives you an idea of how old this estate is.
Is that what's considered the Macallan estate? Or no?
Sure.
That's
it's
it,
almost
right?
500 acres there.
Wow.
Right. So it's a huge estate, natural preserve. It's just this massive area. You got 1.5 miles of the River Spey flowing through it.
Yeah,
so you're in it. So we went there, and it was only about 12 of us. It was all the Macallan brand ambassadors and the brand ambassadors of the team. So from this huge team of like 190 people that were in Scotland, it ended up being only a handful of us that were actually here. We had dinner there, met the chef. We looked around. It was an amazing experience. And then at the end, it was midnight. And at midnight, it's like 7:30 here, 8 o'clock here, where the sun's down, but it's still light out.
Yeah.
So we walked down to the river. I said, well, I can't be this close to it and not go. So we all walked down. We grabbed the bottle, some glasses. We all walked down there. We had one more drink, and then we came back up. And it was, it's magic. It's a weird. A lot of people say that the haunted thing, and I'm like, man, he could have been right next. There could have been a ghost right next to me. I mean, he could have been talking to me. Like,
wouldn't even felt it.
Yeah, amazing.
I got invited by our automotive editor for both Selecta and Casa Life. His name is Bill Adam, and he's a professional race car driver. Drove for Jaguar for 20 years, and he does motorcycles as well, as do I. So he said, Michael, I'm inviting you to come to Scotland. We're going with Ewan McGregor, the actor.
What?
Yeah, and we're doing a tour with him, and we're going to go on motorcycles throughout the Highlands, and we're going to visit all the distilleries one after the other. We're
You
gonna do
went to
samplings.
Scotland with Obi-Wan Kenobi.
No, I didn't go.
Oh.
I didn't go, but I couldn't go. I had another trip in the middle. I think I was at the I was at the 24 Hours of Le Mans in France at the same time that they were doing this in Scotland. So I did the 24 hours. And the only reason I decided this way, because that way, well, number one, Bentley was a big advertiser of ours, as they still are. Bentley's with us. We were the first magazine in the history of Bentley to advertise towards the Hispanic market. And they invited me on that trip, so I went there. But the other reason I didn't go was because I said, wait a second, motorcycles. And stopping at one distillery after the other. I'm not the sipper, man. I'm a Scotch drinker.
I know. I've been out with you.
By 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, if we start at 9 o'clock in the morning,
It's not happening. Yeah.
I'm not. Can I Uber in Scotland, because I'm not getting back on a motor? These are BMW. These were sponsored by BMW motorcycles. I drive a Harley. I ride a Harley, but these are motorcycles, BMW. These things are fast, man. I go, you know what? I kill myself in Scotland, drunk on a BMW motorcycle. So
100%.
you know what? I'll go do the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Bill, you do the story, and send it to me. We'll include it in the magazine.
You are a collector of friends from so many different walks of life. Yeah, I've noticed that.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Somebody told me the other day. They go, "You're doing a podcast." I said, "Yeah, I'm doing a podcast." He says, "But you're gonna have enough. You can do like 100 podcasts just on your friends, interviewing your friends." Yes. And I said, "You know what? My first list of 50 people that I want to interview are all friends of mine." People that I've associated with, that I've known my whole life. Orlam Sonora is going to be one of my podcasts. He's traveling now. He's in Italy. But he's been a professional race car driver since we knew each other. I mean, actually, we knew each other since kindergarten. I think you met Orlam, I'm not sure, in one of our tastings. Orlam and I met in kindergarten. We've been best friends. When I decided to graduate, when I graduated high school and decided to go to college, Orlam said, "I'm going to California and be a professional race car driver." I said, "What the hell do you know about race car driving?" He goes, "I don't know, I'm going to learn it and just go into California." And he did. And he became a professional race car driver, and he drove in Mexico for years and won a bunch of races, drove in California, did the Miami Grand Prix here in Miami, which which he got third place in the LMP 500 series. So super interesting guy, still racing in Homestead Speedway. They still call him up because it's the experience that he has. And he's a teacher now. He's an instructor. But super interesting guy. Best friend since we were in kindergarten. He was at my house this weekend. He comes over on weekends. I go to his house. We went out Saturday night to one of these bars with the kids and stuff. Everybody says, "You're going to do a podcast just on your friends."
That's a grown adult you just pointed to over there.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but you know what I mean.
He's bigger than we are.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So yeah, man. You're right. You were saying that. You're right. It's something, and that's what I like.
Of course, dude. I actually aspire to that. I try and these days I think sometimes we're guilty of living in little echo chambers where everybody's just like us.
Yeah.
It's kind of nice when you have friends from all walks of life, all different ideas and thoughts. Yeah. Keeps things fresh. It's cool. Yeah. And you seem to do that. It's awesome.
Yeah. I've been lucky with friends, and the friends I've made have been with me for years and years. And if I meet a friend today, somebody that I would say is a friend of mine, then 20, 30, 40 years is normal, It's just normal that I've known them and keep knowing them, So I've had good ones,
You're doing it right, whatever it is you're doing, man.
Yeah.
And all the different stories. I feel like I could come up with anything, and you would say, "Yes, of course." Well, back in, and there's a tie there.
Maybe not. I'm a little older than you too. I got a little bit more, time here.
Yeah, but you're using it wisely. I'm trying to live your best life a little bit,
Well, in the publishing business as well, man. I mean, when my kids were born, I slowed down a little bit, but before that, it was travel after travel after travel, and that, we're being invited and taken and toured the world just to be able to write a little something in the magazine on it,
Yeah.
And until today, I'm still sending other reporters out to do stuff for me because I don't want to travel that much, I like spending time at home and with my kids, especially when they got into high school. Both my kids are athletes,
right? Of course.
Lacrosse, hockey, volleyball, So I didn't want to miss games. I didn't want to miss practice. So I would send people to go to these fantastic trips. They're like, "You don't have to pay me. Just give me in this trip. You don't have to pay me. I'll ride it for free." And I'm like, "Yeah, of course." Yeah. So that's kind of interesting and cool.
Yeah, man. So you did it both. You had the business. you traveled, but you also done the family thing.
So you were telling me about this estate. That they consider that to be haunted too, don't they?
I mean, there's stories,
There's
of course.
stories.
Sometimes they say it with such a smirk. I don't know if they're making fun of us just by saying it.
Yeah.
Let's see if these Americans spook easy or
Believe
not.
this, yeah.
Right, but
Yeah.
but I mean, you also, I mean, there's evidence of whiskey being made there for hundreds of years. So
Yeah.
there's also that. So there's a story behind it.
Yeah.
But yeah, going there and seeing the contrast, the new distillery which opened last year, looks like something out of the future. I mean, it just looks.
Really?
It's not what you would think. Old, historic, amazing Scotch brand. New distillery is modern. No, it's state of the art.
Yeah.
They've planned for the future. They've built it so that they can grow even more into it.
Wow.
So they've planned that way, which is amazing. When you see it, it's spare no expense. It's on every level. The millions of things I could tell you about every little nook and cranny of that distillery is insane.
I think I read somewhere Macallan, like in 2017, was like the third largest selling single malt. Is that what it was? But like today, you're not even. You're like number one.
We are number one today by value, and what that means is how that whiskey grows, how much it's worth.
Yeah.
So by value, we are number one by value. I don't foresee a future where we could be number one by volume.
Yeah, but
because
we're not talking about just whiskey. I'm talking about this type of single malt that's very specific. I mean, obviously you're not going to compete in terms of volume with these companies like I don't even want to mention, but like a Dewar's, normal Dewar's, that's the highest selling. But that's not what this is.
Yeah, what John Dewar's and Sons.
Yeah. Johnny Walker, Johnny Dewar's, but those are different.
Those
and they're good, and I drink them.
But
when you're in the mood for something special, this is what you drink.
And again, those are all good whiskeys, but what they do in days or weeks is what we do in a year.
Exactly.
Much smaller.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
And then as I say that, I've known that for a long time, even before I worked with the brand.
Yeah.
Now, it's a much smaller brand. Once you see why, you're like, oh. We could never do this on a much bigger scale. I mean, the way we are with our wood program specifically, just the way that's made, it's so time consuming. The whole industry has essentially moved away from it.
You guys got like master wood
Stuart
makers.
He's our
what do they call him?
Wood. He's our master of wood. Yeah, Stuart's our master of wood, and that's his title.
Crazy. That's crazy.
And so I spent days with him in Spain.
Really?
With him. Amazing guy. Amazing.
I can imagine.
Wealth of information, sense of humor, just the whole thing. Yeah. He's got the stories, man. I mean, he's been there. And so once you hear his take on it and how long he's been in the industry, you realize they go through, if there was a better way to make it, they do it. Yeah. This is the best way they know how to make whiskey, period. Yeah. So they don't cut any corners. So when they're bringing wood in, they have a team that makes sure that these are up to our specifications here in Ohio. And they travel through different parts of the country to make sure that this wood is of the highest caliber. Yeah. And that's still half a century away from making it to anything in a bottle. And they're already doing that. Wow. So what Stuart does to an extent, what a lot of these guys do to an extent, is amazing, because the whiskey that's going to be produced out of all the time and effort they put into those trees and the process of cutting it, the cask holding Oloroso sherry for 18 to 24 months, then coming to us, some of those barrels will be 12 year, some will be 15, some will be 40, 50. Wow. You don't know. It's a conversation.
So you lease it to them? Or you lease the barrels to them for the sherry, and then they send it back to you?
They're partnerships. What they do is they make these casks to our specifications. Then they use them to make their sherry. And then their sherry is extracted, and we get them.
And that's where you get the color.
The color, the flavor, the condition. Everything. Think about this. This is the best way to describe it that the whiskey making team told me, and I was like, that's the best way to think of it. Whiskey is having a conversation with the barrel. Yeah. There's no way to know how long that conversation is going to go. You just know they're going to have a talk. Yeah. So once the whiskey goes into that cask, the conversation might end in 12, 15 years. Yeah. Or It might be like us after a couple of whiskeys. We can go for a long time, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And so what happens is you really don't know that until it's in. And we'll taste different things like that. But what Stewart and that team does is they're making whiskey they'll never know, they'll never taste, and they'll never see. They'll be long gone when some of these whiskeys are finally made.
Wow.
So they are literally, they received a legacy, and they are trying to elevate that legacy for the next group, which is already there, and they see it, and it's a passion, like a lifelong passion, because they'll never know that. It's 50 years away, 40 years away.
They'll never
It's
see
impossible.
They'll never taste it.
Right.
Wow.
So they're really just doing that for the future.
For the love,
Yeah.
for the history and for everything. It's crazy. That's
And it's just
amazing.
And when we were there were some kids that were getting the casks after they'd been filled and putting them into different, all different houses that are aging. And we were having a conversation with one of these kids, and he was 16, 17. It was an apprenticeship, right? And he was already telling us, well, this is why Macallan is so good, and here's why it's better than this brand. And I said, the future's safe. These teenage kids, and they're already just all in.
He's going to taste it probably when he's 60 or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's, we saw casks there that are, 1940s.
Jesus.
Still there, aging.
Yeah.
And that if we saw the barrel, that means the whiskey's still in it. You don't know how far it's going to go. It might still go even further.
Yeah.
So when you're seeing that, you go, my God, like this is these
Incredible.
casks, and this is where we separate ourselves. The amount of time and effort that we put into these casks, that's where we start to separate ourselves from the other whiskeys, because, which we'll taste, they just don't have the diversity in stock.
Yeah.
They just don't have it. There's just no way to fake that, or
You can't fake it. You can't buy it. You can't duplicate it just because somebody else has done it. It's got to be something that started on that track from day one,
Yeah.
and it's just continued. That's the only way to do it.
Yeah.
And
And
what do you
it's
think now that we're talking about some of this new stuff? What do you think about some of this Japanese whiskey out there?
spectacular.
Good stuff, right?
Very good stuff, yeah.
But you got to be, there's not a lot. Some places have a little more than others, but I think there's like 4 or 5 good names that I know of.
Yeah, there's some good brands out there. They're going through a really prosperous period.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Remember, with the whiskey industry, you have to predict your business model 12 to 15 years ahead of time or more.
Yeah.
So you don't always get it perfectly. And so I think they're in that mode right now where they've become really, really hot, and just a brand that everybody's trying to get their hands on. Yeah. And in turn, there's going to be little spots where they're going to be scarce. They're not going to be as many whiskeys around. That's normal. And they'll bounce back. There are ebbs and flows to it.
Yeah. I guess I read somewhere that they kind of like sent their top distillers to Scotland and put them there for years to learn the right way to do this.
There's a lot of affinity with people in Scotland to what they're doing. And again, in Japan, they don't see them as rivals. They just see them as another brother or sister growing the family. That's really how they see it. And so I think a lot of, I took that back from Scotland when I got back, and I'm like, guys, try other whiskeys.
Yeah.
If you're really confident that our brand is that amazing, and it is, trust me, taste other things, and you will see how you gravitate back towards some of our whiskeys. Yeah. It's natural.
I think what hurts businesses and companies when there's other people doing the same thing you're doing is when they don't maintain the same quality or ethics doing it.
Sure.
In the magazine business, in the publishing business, when there was this big in the 90s, there was this big movement, and there was freaking 50 magazines just here in Miami alone.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Remember that?
Everywhere.
And everywhere there was a new magazine, and I think what hurt us the most was that 5 of us were quality publications who were real publishers the cigar business went through the same thing.
Oh my God, the
Remember?
90s.
Remember the 90s,
especially.
the cigar business, and then all of a sudden you walked into a place where you saw 50 different brands you didn't know. You tried them, they were all horrible. So then eventually you went back to, obviously, of course, the stuff that you knew, the Padrones, the Fuentes, the stuff that are the people who are real master blenders in their field, master cigar
They'll
makers.
always stand out.
And they'll always, and then those are the ones that, the ups and the downs happen, and they stay, and they stay, and they stay, and they grow in those things, So same thing with I know Carlito thinks about, he'll appreciate a good quality cigar made by somebody else. It's the bad quality cigar that hurts the industry altogether. You
Yeah,
know?
whiskey's definitely in the midst of that.
Yeah.
It has everything to do from, I mean, you can trace it back to a lot of things. There's I feel like whiskey drinkers in their 25 to 35 range, at least locally in South Florida, have a better palate than any of that age range that's ever existed here, including me or you or anyone else.
Mm.
They're more curious. Now, this is measurable.
Yeah.
They're much more curious. They're less likely to be brand loyal long term. They want to try. They want experiences. They want to. They're curious about what they eat and what they drink, and so in that, I think they're going to discover whiskeys like this, which is another reason why we're doing so well. Is because if you drank Macallan because your father drank Macallan, that's great.
Yeah.
But if you drink Macallan because you drank a bunch of other whiskeys and you gravitated towards Macallan,
Mm-hmm.
that's a whole different level of appreciation,
Yeah.
and that's really cool.
Yeah.
The economy's doing great. That doesn't
Yeah.
hurt. That's always a good thing. And when with bourbons and other things that have come of age,
Yeah.
along with other whiskeys. I mean, in Scotland, there's simply not a lot of whiskeys that make their own barrels at all anymore, let alone have coopers and partnerships with bodegas.
Yeah.
That's gone. They
Really?
buy their barrels used.
And there's very few that are still, you know, like primarily owned by themselves, family owned,
Scottish
and stuff.
owned. There's a handful,
Yeah,
unfortunately.
handful. Yeah.
We have never added any kind of agents to color our whiskey.
The syrups or things like
we're
that.
very proud to say
Yeah,
that, and
yeah.
unfortunately, that is something that is also very rare now. Where if
Look
you're
at the color you get, man.
Yeah.
And you get, like I said, you get that from the barrels and stuff.
That's it.
Everybody adds, you know, without mentioning any names, they add this coloring syrup, this dyes, whatever, to bring out the
and
color.
it's legal.
Yeah, I understand, but come on, man. I mean, you're getting this the natural way from the wood, and you know you're getting 100%. If those people that are so into, you know, everything being organic, 100%
And
organic,
craft
this is
and
it.
source,
Craft and stuff like
exactly.
that. This is it, man.
This is.
And there's a couple out there. I think Glenmorangie could be one.
Glenmorangie a great whiskey, and
Yeah.
they make such. They also take. They put a lot of time and effort into their aging process as
Yeah.
well. Very very much
Yeah.
so.
I don't know what happened in the last 20 years, but I know that I've met with them and I've sat with them and we've had tastings and stuff, and I know they were family owned back then. About
They-
20 years ago. I don't know if they're still family owned.
They're associated.
Yeah.
I don't think they're completely family owned anymore.
Yeah.
But they're still in
Well,
association
it's just
there.
to change it, but that's another one that if there's no Macallans, no this, well, what do you got? Glenmorangie. Even the 10-year-old is good. You
Well,
know?
one of the cool things about us, we don't really advertise it,
Yeah.
but we are actually owned by the Patterson Trust,
Okay.
which is actually the largest charitable trust in the United Kingdom.
Oh.
And that was done specifically so that Macallan would always remain Macallan. So there's so many different people involved with that. That just a
Wow.
larger company swooping in and buying a brand just for
Right.
it, it's
Yeah.
impossible. It'll never happen.
Won't
So we're
happen.
confident in that. And then 30% of what we make every year goes to charity.
Oh,
So
wow.
we donate millions and millions
Wow.
of pounds.
Phenomenal.
We don't advertise that, but that's part of what keeps us centered and grounded.
That's incredible.
And we give more. We want to do more. We want to be that. That was one of the things that attracted me to the company, believe it or not, was that I knew other people that worked in it. And just the ethos of the company overall wasn't just about the whiskey, but there was like a mantra there about
Well,
being
we've talked about doing some fundraisers here also in
We're
South
going-
Florida, and so we
we're
got to
going
put
to do-
something together.
We're going
Yeah.
to do
Yeah.
fundraising together,
Yeah.
one way or the other.
Yeah.
But that's also something that, and I've worked with other companies that do that, don't get me wrong, but not with this kind of passion, where my company will match what I bring in. I mean, or double match. They'll
Wow.
always come to my assistance. If I say I have a charity, I'm passionate about it, they'll find a way to support me.
That's great.
And that just keeps me going. Like,
Yeah.
man, why wouldn't I want to do that?
Yeah.
I want to do more. you
Yeah.
know? Like,
Yeah.
it's amazing.
Seems
I
like
know-
companies like that do things, and I know a handful of them. They're always successful because number one, I think they're blessed with what they do,
Of
and number
course,
one,
sure.
they have those values that other companies don't have. You know,
Mhm.
and they have certain values that it's not all about money. It's not all about this, and it's about giving back and helping, and it works, man. It
I
works.
think it's a balance. I
Yeah.
mean, We still need to make a profit.
Sure.
There's numbers to
Sure,
hit.
of course.
But when you know that in addition to that, there's also a laser focus on what are we doing for our communities? What are you doing for your community? What can we create? And then they think bigger. Where everyone says, oh, we're going to do, like, no, let's think of something ongoing. Let's think of a series. Let's think of local charities, larger charities. We're involved with everything from breast cancer to men's health awareness in Movember.
Wow.
I'm always looking for things to just, okay, it's July. What are we doing? What can I do?
Yeah.
Right? Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
And then no matter how mundane other things can be, you always know. I did that, though. Feel good about that. That was cool, even if it was hard. So
that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
that's
man.
awesome. Congratulations, on the company, and congratulations on and the company you work for and the things you guys do, because that's really good. It's really good.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the next couple of years and growing it so that in Miami there's partnerships like I have with you and with a few other people, trying to collect that eclectic group you have.
Yeah.
And like people that have like-mindedness, that fit, that are, local people that get it, and then maybe things we can do in the long term.
Absolutely, man. For sure. For sure.
That's the way to go, man.
Yeah.
And it's fun along the way,
It's fun. Yeah. You're doing something good. You're doing something that's important for the community, and you're also doing something that's fun and that you enjoy, and it works for all the businesses involved as well,
That's the key. It's the
Yeah.
holy grail.
Yeah.
We're getting
win-win. Win-win, man.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right,
So what else have we not talked about here, man? We've talked about everything, huh? I heard you guys sold a bottle once for $460,000. It went for $660,000 somewhere. When was that?
Truth be told, that's an old statistic.
Oh.
That bottle exists. We did sell that.
Right.
The latest one we sold, which is a 1926, which sold for 1.5.
You're kidding. $1.5 million for a bottle of scotch.
For example, bottles like this, which we're going to taste, I brought this from home. This bottle is gone.
It doesn't exist anymore?
Right. I mean, if you can buy it at a retailer, get it. But we haven't produced it in a while. It's a Macallan Rare Cast.
The Rare Cast.
Now, what we have is
it's beautiful bottle.
Different Rare Casts that will say, and it'll have an age, and it'll have a batch number, because we make them in batches. We do.
Yeah.
We didn't know it was going to be so popular when we first made it. Hence, none of that information. This was a one-off.
Right.
And so now this bottle is going up in value. For those that already have it, it is now starting to sell for more. A lot of our non-age statement stuff, including the age statement stuff, is starting to go up in value. So, weird place to be. Our whiskey is a commodity. Period.
Yeah.
It is being purchased not just for what it is.
Consumption or anything. It's being purchased to put away. And
correct.
Like cases of it, right?
Cases of it. And you have these collectors that are spending it. And when you're talking about the asking price being in the tens of thousands of dollars,
wow,
people are putting that money in simply to wait a few years and flip that. Now, you can also do that with a $100 bottle. It doesn't have to be.
Yeah. How do they store it? How does whiskey have to be stored in bottles? Because these are all cork.
Generally speaking, this is the perfect way to do it. Just standing straight up.
Standing straight up like that?
Because
the cork doesn't dry up like in wines or things like that?
No. Actually, with wine, the biggest driver of that is that with wine, the alcohol content in the liquid is very low. So you're talking about somewhere between 14 and 16%.
Yeah.
So you need that contact with the cork to keep everything aging perfectly.
Oh.
With whiskey, it's the polar opposite. You have something that has 43% alcohol. So because of that amount of alcohol, if you keep it stored sideways, especially in this town, one day you will come home to a little surprise. It has eaten away at the cork, and it has now left the bottle.
Oh, my God.
And that mistake has been
made. That makes sense. It makes sense with the alcohol.
Now, that takes a long time, but it will eventually get there.
Yeah.
So with whiskey, and it's also, the aging process has also stopped, whereas in wine is literally alive in the bottle, or champagne. It's going to have its peak times to consume it. This is a great time to consume this whiskey. This wine isn't peaking yet. This wine is going to peak in 2 years because it's going through its process in the bottle. Yeah. This is gone. This is 43%. This is stop doing what it's going to do. Jeez. Open at any time. Yeah. And even then, once you open it, it can stay open for a long period of time, whereas with wine, the clock is ticking.
Yeah.
Once you open it.
Right, of course.
So, but with whiskey, it's very much that way.
Wow. All right, so which one are we going to try first?
That's the spirit.
No pun intended, huh? That's the spirit.
Hey, nothing gets past him. All right. Let me have a little
Now, do you add
water.
water to it, to yours?
Good question. So,
Everybody says you have to add a little bit of water
you definitely don't.
to open it up.
It can. There is times when that is true. There's times when it's not really very true. The biggest thing to remember with that whole process, not to get boring and have everybody fall asleep. So this came out of the cask at a much higher percentage. Water of the highest quality has been added to this to bring it down, because our master whiskey makers have decided over hundreds of years that this percentage for us, 43%, is the perfect sweet spot where we think this whiskey tastes perfectly. If you're drinking a Glenlivet or a Glenfiddich, that may be 40 to 43, 45. If you're drinking another kind of Macallan, it might be 45, 46.
Yeah.
Okay, so each one is put there specifically for that. When you add water, you're simply continuing the process we already started. So you're just adding more water and you're changing that ABV a little bit. So if you add a little bit of water to this, you're simply bringing it down to low 40s, upper 30s. But that may be the way you like it. If that's the way you like it,
I got
have at
you.
it.
I got you.
For example, I love sipping whiskeys that are high proof, big, bold flavor. I love that. So I love sipping and tasting that stuff. I love what it does to the palate. So the last thing I'll do is add water because I enjoy that flavor. But I also understand if I'm sampling someone with whiskey and they're not a huge whiskey fan, that's probably not where you want to start. So let's add a little water to that. Now, by adding some water, that might do something to the aromas especially. It might kind of bring some of that to life. There's nothing wrong with that at all. But I always encourage people, when you're trying any brown spirit, specifically whiskeys of this proof, try it neat.
Neat. Yeah.
Because what you're doing is you're not allowing your palate to fully enjoy what this is. You might like it.
Yeah, right.
With
And neat mostly is the higher quality ones. You're talking about 12 years and up.
Sure.
Yeah,
So you want to try it neat. Now, however, if you're drinking like a cask strength thing and it's 110 proof, 115 proof, and you say, I want to bring that down a little bit, I get it.
Yeah.
I totally understand that.
Yeah,
So
that's okay.
that's totally okay. But you'll never know if you like it if you don't try it neat.
Right.
It's almost like trying a spicy food. Like I didn't like spicy food for a long time, and I found out it's actually that I love spicy food. I was afraid of it.
Yeah.
And then once I started eating it, I loved it. So now I love spicy food. Same thing. I was timid.
Yeah.
We're Cuban. We drink.
Yeah.
So when you drink whiskey, when I was growing up, you either drank it neat and big,
Yeah.
or you drowned it with ice,
Yeah.
and you just drank that all the time.
Yeah.
So I drank like that for most of my life, And then somewhere along the line, someone had me like, look, just try it this way.
Yeah.
And then I actually found that I liked it more. But I also started to develop the palate of what I liked and what I didn't.
Yeah.
So that's where some whiskeys I said, it's kind of flat. I like the flavor kind of in my face a little bit. You know what I mean? I don't like it to be too subtle and too. I like some flavors coming out at you.
Yeah.
And so that's where I started to gravitate towards like these whiskeys. They're spicy.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm the
sherry
same. I'm the
comes out.
same way when it comes to. And I guess as a drinker, you start developing more and more. It's just like cigars. People who start in the cigar industry, they start with a soft, mild cigar, and then as they keep smoking and keep smoking and keep smoking, they start requiring a little stronger, and their palate starts developing. Same with Scotch.
And your palate will change with your age.
Yeah,
That
right.
also
palate
happens.
changes. Yeah.
So another thing was when we had an event somewhere where someone said, "Taste this with your nose pinched."
Mm-hmm.
And now taste it without your nose pinched.
Yeah.
So you can discover that all that you got from the majority of what you got from the whiskey wasn't actually here.
It was in your nose. Yeah, you're right.
Absolutely.
You're
And
right.
so
You're right.
that's a game changer as well.
So this is the 12, huh?
So what we
Macallan
have
12.
here is just the heartbeat of Macallan, right? So this is all European oak. This is all sherry seasoned. So that means that all of this oak was grown in the north of Spain. It's similar to what we talked about before. It's in excess of 100 years old. All of this has been hand cut into staves.
Wow.
think about this. It's hand cut. Once it's cut, it is then air dried naturally.
Hmm.
So we're talking about, imagine football fields worth of staves stacked like Lincoln logs, remember?
Yeah, right.
Stacked like that for years
Wow.
so that it can naturally expand and contract and get ready to age. Then all this is time and effort that unfortunately most distillers would never consider doing.
Yeah.
Their investments sitting out in the field for 2 years.
Yeah.
Then they're assembled, the cask is put together, and the sherry goes in for another 18 to 24 months.
Wow.
And that's all about the flavor and about the profile, right? And then after that, it's extracted, and then the casks are shipped whole to Scotland, which is a huge thing because once our casks are put together, they're never broken down again.
Oh no.
No, where most distillers will break them down for shipping. So we almost come up with new and exciting ways to lose money and time. We do.
And then you send them back when you're done with them, because after a while, or do
No,
they just keep
for-
it? They just keep
For the
aging
most
and
part,
aging?
from one cycle of aging, we can get anywhere from 12 to 15 years to decades.
Oh, wow.
So we just
Gotcha.
don't know where that's
Gotcha.
going to go.
Hmm.
Each cask has like a life, and you just don't know it. It's like people. It's like
Yeah.
you don't know
Yeah.
where you're going to end when you're born. You know.
Mhm.
So and this for me is also always a great starting point. No matter where I'm doing these tastings, I always love to start here
Mhm.
because this is kind of it. These are the roots of the tree. This is it.
Yeah.
So this
Yeah.
is a great way to start.
Yeah.
And so big, bold, spicy notes, warm, even to the nose. It's very warm.
You feel it. You feel it. You know. You feel the sensation.
Yeah. And you also love Spanish food and stuff.
Of course,
If you
yeah.
ever want to have a little like food with a little oloroso sherry,
Mhm.
always grab a little Macallan somewhere to nose and taste it, and the connection is so much more obvious.
Is that right?
So when you're nosing
Never
and
done
tasting
that. Never
oloroso
tried
sherry,
that.
try it, and then go back to this, and you realize how much of that there is here.
No kidding.
Oh, massive. Again,
Makes sense. Makes sense.
travels from Spain. I'm like, wow, we were in sherry country. It was amazing. So,
Mm.
see, your dad still drinks like. So here I am sipping it. No, but
That was a sip.
I know it was. I know you. You're being. Yeah, I know. When you're nosing and tasting whiskey, which is something that I'm a big proponent of, less is more, and so nosing and tasting small sips is good because usually, like the heart of what you're going to nose and taste in whiskey is in those second and third sips. Your palate is just getting acclimated to whiskey in the first sip. So I tell people all the time, no matter how much you love it, trust me, if you take small sips, and then actually if you nose that glass again with your mouth a little open, try that. Look how much more you got now from the first sip.
Yeah.
Simply because you've already coated your palate with the whiskey. So now
Yeah.
your nose is going, okay, cool. I already got a primer. It's almost like painting a wall, right?
Yeah. Right.
First
right,
coat
Right.
is not what you see. It's a second, third, fourth coat. Same thing. So with whiskey, you're going for those second and third coats. That's always going to be where the real, true essence of it is.
I love that.
Hmm.
That's so cool.
With the 12, there's also those ginger spicy notes that if you were to have some oloroso sherry, you go, wow, didn't know it was so much of that from there.
Mm.
So, yeah, this is always kind of one that I always go back to.
That's criminal. What you just did. Criminal. You threw that away.
So
Oh my God.
I
I tell you a funny story before you
go.
I went to a wine tasting
Mhm.
with a salesperson of mine that years ago, and it was here in Miami. It was at the Hyatt Hotel, and it was these small. What's this wine that's a small family-owned estates? That's the grape. It's called the. Oh my God, the one from the movie.
Pinot Noir?
The Pinot Noir. It was
Uh-huh.
Pinot Noir, and they were all Pinot Noirs. And
Wonderful.
back then, Pinot Noirs, apparently a grape that is, you can do it in 5-acre farms, 10-acre farms.
Yeah, it's very temperamental.
Family
It's a
owned.
temperamental
so it's
grape,
very
yeah.
picky and stuff like that.
Mhm.
Okay. So there's about 25 of these people. And I'm going as a representative, of course, of my family business, Selecta. Again, this is about 15 years ago. And I'm going up to everybody's individual booth, and it's the husband
maker,
and wife
yeah.
that make this
That's the
wine, and it's
best.
their, And then they give me this history about their family and what they have. And would you like to try? Absolutely, I'd love to try. So I try it. And they have the buckets there for you to spit it out. I said, these people, I can't spit out their wine. These people have been working their whole lives dedicating their, blood, sweat, and tears to this business, and I'm going to spit it out? No, out of respect. That's like if I gave somebody a copy of a magazine, and they looked at it and they went, this is beautiful.
awesome.
Boom, and tossed it. Brother, that was okay. The first, the second, the third. By the time I was in the 10th or 12th booth, I was like, hey, yeah. I mean, now I know why you got to spit it out,
Yeah.
And you don't want to do that because out of respect for them to spit out their wine, it's almost like I'm saying I didn't like it,
Yeah.
So
a lot of those guys will get it. Same thing with us. For me, I do this almost every day, if not every day.
Yeah.
So I do have days.
So do
where
I. I do this almost every day. Too.
I know you do.
But
so I try and nip and tuck.
Yeah.
I will definitely have like a day every week or two where I will go visit different restaurants and bars, go out, have some drinks, see people, etc. And then most of the time I'm actually just hosting and talking and not really.
Yeah.
I'll nose it. I'll always nose it. I love that part, and I'll have a sip. But that's where the less is more part comes in. Just just a little. If I was home and I was like working, I'll usually have a little pour of something to kind of get things going.
Right.
But I may not even drink it. I'll just really kind of nose it or take a small
Is that
sip.
right? Huh?
Yeah.
You feel bad that somebody did this 150 years ago. God knows there's whiskey in there, and it ends up in some.
I hope that they're happy with how I manage myself with the brand and how I conduct myself.
Oh no, I'm sure they are. No, I know they are.
That's
I'm just saying.
Don't
Aside
you
from
feel
that,
bad,
like
aside
you
from
just
that,
threw away something that's so.
No, I know.
I don't know. It's like me. I smoke my cigars till they're almost burning me, and put them down. Because I'm like, they're good.
Cigars are different like that too, because the flavors themselves will change through the cigar. So you want to have sometimes that last chunk, that last third, may be the best part. It might be amazing.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll do on this next one. What we'll do is,
there we go.
Since you're going to throw half of yours away, you just give me a little more and you a little less, and that way we don't have to we don't have to feel bad.
So think of.
So this is also 12, huh? Mm-hmm. But it's a different type of 12.
That's right. So we're going to take you through. So imagine this being like the Macallan University. You just went through your freshman year.
Right.
We're about to go sophomores.
I got
then junior, and graduation is going to be amazing. You're going to have a great time.
I got you.
So what we're having here is our 12-year double cask. And this has kind of become my go-to. So differences. So we're not subtracting, we're adding. So this whiskey is a European sherry oak only, right? Mm-hmm. European oak, held sherry seasoned. What we're adding here is American oak, but sherry seasoned. So this is American oak that has gone through the same process as the European oak. The way it was cut, the way it aged in like natural air, the way it housed Oloroso sherry, and into the barrel goes the whiskey. So the only difference between these two is the type of wood, being that this is predominantly American oak. But you can see this is lighter in color. It's going to be usually a little lighter in color. It's a different tone of brown altogether. Where this is very caramelly, this is a little bit more like amber.
Yep.
To the nose, it's softer away.
Softer. I was going to say that. Is it because I drank one already that this feels a little softer, or is it really softer?
It is just a little bit softer.
You don't get what you were talking about, the
big
peppery,
spicy ginger
spicy
notes.
stuff.
Not there. Now what you get is a little bit more of a butterscotch, a little bit more of a vanilla, right? It's all there, and it's all wood. This is all about the cask.
Wow.
So we're growing our style. So this is one. Now we're adding a second. So this is American. This is predominantly American oak.
Yeah.
But this is all sherry seasoned whiskey.
Now this is not like, for example, this is the one that I would find at most restaurants that I go to, most bars,
it's pretty
whatever
common.
they are, the 12, but not this one.
This one is getting there.
It's getting there, really.
So I also love American whiskey. I do love great bourbons and great rye and stuff like that, and I've always liked those. But I love the sherry components of Macallan, including everything else that they do. So for me, this hits everything that I like. So I'm getting the American oak notes that I love from American whiskey. Right. I'm getting the sherry season that I like. from my Macallan and from Scotch. So for me, it kind of hits on all levels. Also, this being malted barley. Malted barley is going to be a little lighter and a little thinner on the palate than a whiskey that's made a lot predominantly of corn, like American whiskeys and bourbons are. And so this kind of hits all the spots for me, where it's like vanilla, citrus, nice, not as warm,
Yeah.
softer on the palate.
The bourbons, there are some that I've tasted that I've been able to drink that I like, but they're always a little too sweet for me, and I think that's changing now. They were much sweeter before. I think now they're changing them to make them taste a little bit more like a good, quality Scotch. Obviously, it's not, but I'm not a big sweets guy. I'm more of the peppery, salty, ginger, spicy stuff. That's what I like.
Yeah, there's always going to be there's
Same with my cigars. Some people like cigars. Oh, I like it. It tastes so sweet. I don't like a sweet cigar.
I don't like a sweet cigar.
It almost makes me nauseous, to be honest with you. I like a spicy. I like the Opus. Opus is my favorite, so that's the cigar that really gets me.
Spicy,
and everything
creamy,
from the Fuente stuff. He doesn't like to make these soft. He makes cigars for cigar.
Fuente's always a brand you grow into.
Yeah,
like you start having a few different kinds.
A few, you're right.
And then when you hit it the first time, you may not love it, and then you grow into it, and then at some point you're like, yeah, this is
the only thing I'll smoke because it's just it's just the flavor. Yeah, I know. And when I say the only thing I smoke, of course, there's other brands like Felix's El Galan is a good, but he is a good cigar. My son's favorite. He loves that, and he's got some brands that are good. Obviously, the stuff from Nicaragua, from Padron. Spicy, strong. I love that stuff as well.
Yeah, I've gotten into some Drew Estate stuff recently. I had a cigar there. It's called Dogma. Wow. Yeah. I was like, wow.
They just had the IPCPR show in Vegas.
Oh, they did? Oh, that's right.
We've been so busy we haven't had a chance to go with all the things going on with the magazine, the podcast, the digital marketing company. But next year, I said we got to book it and take some time to go because it's a great event.
And it's a great time for cigars, man. I mean, there's
just
so much. There's good quality cigars.
Good stuff. Yeah.
I feel like what you were talking about in the '90s, where there was a
big
saturation.
Boom. That boom.
It was so much.
Everybody I talked to, I got a cigar brand. I got a cigar brand. I got a cigar brand. People would come to me and say, "Hey, let's do a cigar brand name select." I go, "No, it's a million cigar brands out there. Plus, I want to enjoy cigars that I love. I want to smoke cigars that I enjoy, that I love, and I'm not going to produce that because I'm not a cigar maker.
Right.
So I'm going to leave the cigars to the cigar makers to the masters, and let them do what they'll do. I'll do my publishing. They'll do their thing, and we'll switch.
Yeah, I got into cigars as a kid through my dad, of course, and then when I was in the military, I was stationed in Haiti for a while, and my dad would ship me care packages like every week. So each little box was things that he knew that I loved, that I could use when I'm in the middle of that scenario. So he would send me a can of La Guayaba. He would send me Auto Trader magazines. Which I loved Auto Trader magazines.
Yeah.
Just to dream,
Yeah, sure.
And then he would send me a box of La Aurora.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Which we're talking years ago, but I love La Aurora. He knew I loved it. So when my care packages got there, everybody knew. It's like, and then I just got further and further into it, and now I look at my brothers and sisters that are in those 20s now, and their palate's so much better, dude.
Yeah, really?
So much better than mine.
Yeah.
I look back and I'm like, I was a savage. Yeah. It was a different time.
Well, man, the cigars that when I was young, and my dad was smoking cigars, you couldn't find a cigar store or anything like that, or a cigar club. The cigars we bought here in Miami were cafeteria, and they were 60 cents, 45 cents, 55 cents. Yeah. Versailles, La Carreta. Those are the cigars that was mine, and they smart, doing it the right way. The quality up, and they kept bringing up the quality. But it's just like in whiskey. I mean, my father, there wasn't, this quality whiskey when my father was, 40 years ago. When I was a young kid, I would dip my finger in my dad's whiskey and go like that when I was, 8, 9 years old, whatever. Maybe I shouldn't say that because that could be illegal, but whatever. And I would do that with the whiskey. Back then it was J&B, Cutty Sark, Dewar's White Label. That's what they drank.
Sure.
They didn't have this quality. So it was all relative,
was also with Scotch brands being aspirational brands. When our families, our fathers and grandfathers got here, they had to sacrifice what they wanted versus what was best for families.
Yeah.
So when they were able to get above a certain financial bracket, they didn't want to drink what they could always afford.
Right.
They wanted to finally drink what they couldn't afford.
Yeah.
And in Cuba and a lot of Central and South America, those are the Scotch brands.
Yeah.
Rum was always available. Beers were available, and you could always have that. But it was an absolute status symbol to be able to afford the Johnny Walkers and the Buchanans.
Absolutely.
That said something.
Yeah.
The Chivas
Yeah.
Regals. So to this day, there is still a lot of that in Cuban culture and Latin culture. Once you hit a certain level, you do that, and that was always a thing. And I bartended for years right across the street here at Hillstone, back then Houston's.
Yeah.
And it was something to be said when you were able to walk in there and say, "I'll get a black on the rocks. You've arrived."
Yeah.
You know, it was
Yeah.
something.
That's funny.
And as weird as that is, I look at the younger generation, and they're not like that. They're a little bit more adventurous. They still do some of that. It's still Monster Brand. And
The millennials.
The
A little
millennials.
different, huh?
But it forces everyone to take a look, right?
Yeah.
And be like, all right, are they wrong?
Yeah.
They're a little annoying, I get it. But are they wrong, though? And they're not wrong.
No,
they're
they're not.
actually, there's a
Yeah.
lot of sense to that, which
Yeah.
is cool.
Yeah.
Right? That doesn't stop me from making fun of millennials, but
That's
so
funny. That's
so
funny.
here we had the 12-year double cast.
Double
And
cast, yeah.
Again, big thing here is American oak, all sherry season. That's something that's very unique to Macallan. That we get American oak and we don't let anything else touch it before the sherry goes in. So this is all sherry season, just like our other European oak style.
Right.
So that's what this is. You like it?
Love it. Love it. Very nice.
It's definitely one of
Very,
my
very
go-tos.
nice.
And also, to make it easy, with our new packaging, all looks exactly the same. So before we had a lot of different packaging. This is
It
all
looks
exactly the same.
Yeah.
Except
A couple
for
of little color differences
Right.
on the labels there, so you know.
so
At least I'll
American
know
oak,
that.
right?
Yeah.
Kentucky blue.
Right.
Nice and easy.
Right.
And 2 barrels here, 1 barrel here. So it kind of shows the progression
Yeah.
as you get to 3.
Wow. 15.
Right. And so that's the next one we're going to have. And the 3, which is the triple, again, we're not subtracting, we're adding, right?
Right.
So this whiskey is in this whiskey. And now
Right.
These 2 whiskeys are going to be in this whiskey. But we're adding American bourbon cask.
Is that
So
right?
this is American oak that has already held bourbon or American whiskey, right? And so
Is that going to make it sweeter?
there you go.
Yeah.
You're already thinking, right?
Yeah.
And so what you have here is the oldest of the 3, but the lightest of the 3. Clearly, right?
Yep. Yep.
You also can imagine being that it's older, you can see now it doesn't mean bolder or darker or anything like that. It just means older. If you make all these different casks, if you control the process, think of these 3 as, do you remember the 3 primary colors?
The 3 primary colors.
This is old school.
Uh,
Yellow,
blue,
red, and blue.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
you have those 3 primary colors. So think of these as our 3 primary colors of making whiskey. Now what we're going to do is we're going to play with the sizes.
Yeah.
So if I want to make a really bold whiskey, I make a really small cask. That means the whiskey is going to touch the wood a lot more.
Yeah.
So you get a lot more flavor and boldness, which is awesome,
Gotcha.
if that's what you're looking for. And then I'll make a very, very large cask, which means it touches a very small amount of the wood, which gives it a more subtle flavor, a little more delicate.
Oh.
So with us, we want diversity. We want all of it.
Yeah.
So we have all these different wood styles in different sizes, aging for decades. And once they've aged and reached their peak, then on the back end, we'll nose them and go, all right, this one's going to be part of this. This one's
Wow.
going to go here. But the only reason we can make things like this is because we have such a stock of so many different kinds of whiskey that we can say, I want to make a young, bold whiskey. I want to make an old, bold whiskey. I want to make an old, light whiskey. We have it. We have enough of that.
You have enough of that to be able to put it
But you
together.
need to do the investing of time and money in the front end
Yeah.
to get that out of the back end, or you'll never get it.
Early enough, yeah. Amazing.
Enough of me talking without whiskey. All right. So this one, this happens. So what this is 15-year triple cast. So 3 barrel styles here, and look how much lighter that is.
Yeah. Look at the
Right out of
color
the
on
gate.
that, huh?
Yeah. So
Color on that, huh?
3 different barrel styles. Okay. And we don't make different whiskeys. We make a whiskey from a still that goes into different casks. So this
So
is
what changes everything
it's the
about
wood.
it is the wood.
It's the wood. It's
And the
all about
length
the
of
wood.
time in the wood,
Exactly.
and the spirit, the white spirit that
Yep.
comes out of the
Of
distill,
the still
is the
is-
same.
yeah.
Nothing
Oops, sorry about
changes.
that. Yeah. Nothing.
Very cool.
So this is all about aging and like the mastery of
Yeah.
being able to nose and taste these things and make a whiskey. And again, that all of those components, this has to taste the same every time.
That's the part that always baffles me.
Yeah.
And I've asked Carlito that many times in conversations. How do you, year after year after year, get the Don Carlos to taste the same?
Exactly the
How do
same.
you get the Magnum R to taste the same? This is not the same tobacco. He goes, no, the tobacco in the Magnum R, and then of course, obviously, with his palate, he'll tell you
That's the
Magnum R with this particular batch tastes a little bit sweeter and than the batch from 3 years ago. And I go, I can't taste the difference.
You can't, nor can I.
But I know it's a Magnum R.
Yeah.
You can take the label off of it, and I know if I'm smoking a Magnum R, you can take the label off of it, just like
You
I'm
can pick it
sure,
out.
and I know it's a Don Carlos, and I can definitely pick out an Opus like anybody can because Opus has its own flavor, that's different than anything else, But I'm sure you don't need to have these numbers on the bottle to know what you're drinking.
I
You
think
can
that I have
pretty
a
much-
pretty decent palate and I can
Yeah.
pick certain things out, but not on that level. I mean, when I was we walked into the room, or we were at the distillery. They had the ambassadors together. And
It's much softer.
and we walked
much
right.
softer.
So
much softer.
lighter,
Yeah.
definitely more vanilla, more
Mm-hmm.
citrus. With this one, the second or third sips, that's where I get like lemon and citrusy note to it. This is almost refreshing compared to
Yeah.
some of the bigger, bolder ones.
Yeah.
So this is like the entry level one, where sometimes if someone is not a big Scotch drinker, whenever somebody says I don't drink Scotch, and I'm like, no, dude, that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
All people drink Scotch. They just haven't found the Scotch they like.
Yeah.
And if you find it, you may not even be a drinker. You may not enjoy alcohol. But I assure you, there's something that you'll nose and sip, and you'll go, that was amazing.
Well, now I know why I like 12 so much. Just a regular, single oak cast 12 because
European
I
sherry
like
oak.
all that. I like all the things
Yeah,
to go nuts.
Once you go through the three of these,
Yeah.
you also start to develop your own palate, right? So you might go, that one was my favorite. Like, I love that one. And that one is, I love sherry, which I do.
Yeah.
This one's a great whiskey, but it does have that American oak.
Yeah.
But if you're a American whiskey drinker, you might gravitate towards this.
My wife's a Scotch drinker. She would probably love the 15 because sometimes some of the Scotches that I drink, she'll look at it and she says, it's too strong. It's too powerful.
This
She would
one,
love the 15.
I do pairings sometimes with different cheeses,
Mm-hmm.
and this one's always a hit. It's just kind of light and refreshing compared to the big ones. But yeah, these are basically
Phenomenal.
kind of the ABCs of our whiskey. And once you get to that point, you realize, oh, okay, cool. I'm gravitating towards different notes here. And that has everything to do with your own palate. It has nothing to do with anything else, really. It just has everything to do with your palate.
Yeah.
So you've now gone through, you're now a senior. So now we're going to get to graduation. So all of these whiskeys are age statement whiskeys that we've tried. So that means that the 12 is always going to be the 12. And the 15 is the 15. These are whiskeys that we're trying to reproduce in consistency. So that's why it's going to have that label, that brand, and that year. So that if you always want the 18 to taste like the 18, it's going to taste like the 18. And that's what that's about. It's about those casks coming together to make that whiskey exactly the same.
Wow.
This is the opposite. So when you have our non-age statement whiskeys, these are whiskeys that have something different about it that most likely is a little bit more difficult to reproduce, and probably something that's going to go towards that collectability angle, because there's something about this whiskey that isn't simply just a number or a style. What is it about this whiskey? So what's different about this whiskey is that this is, as we're nosing whiskeys, when I went into the distillery, the coolest part of the whole trip was we walked into the room where the whiskey makers were making whiskey at that moment. And so we're nerds, of course, when we walk in, and they're like, what are you doing? They're like, oh, we're making a batch of rare cask. And I felt like I felt like the scene in Jurassic Park where they walk in and the dinosaurs hatching,
Yeah.
and they go, wow. Like,
Wow.
so they're like, oh, you're making it right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I see all these different little glasses with a little shot of whiskey in it. I'm like, wow, what are you doing with that? It's like, we're just writing notes. We're not picking anything yet.
Wow.
We're just nosing and saying, okay, this one is a little bit more medicinal and has some kind of minerality to it. Cool. This one, aging very dark, all different colors. As they're taking all those notes, they're allowing that whiskey to age. And then at some point they'll say, okay, just like different colors, where other whiskey makers simply have a very small range of colors because they don't have that diversity. Our whiskey makers have a massive array of colors because they have so many different things aging. So these, we're making a batch of 12-year. So
I'd never be able to get a job there.
You definitely would. You definitely would. And
I
so
wouldn't.
they're pulling all that stuff, right? And then there's some casts, they're like, we don't know what this is yet. We're going to just let this go and see where
Wow.
it ends.
Look at that.
And that's what a lot of these are. So these are casts that just aged spectacularly.
And they're not worried about reproducing it. It is what it is now.
The
and
whole point of this whiskey is that it will be gone.
Unique, and
Yes.
it's gone. So we're not going to reproduce it.
Can't. So literally, also some of the bodegas that made the sherry that is in this whiskey are no longer in production. We couldn't make this whiskey again if we
If
wanted
you
to.
wanted to.
It's gone.
Yeah, wow.
It's gone. And
That's
so
crazy.
this is less than half of 1% of what we have aging. Vatted together one time. We made this, and it's gone. That's the whole point of rare casks. And so you can get a new batch, but you can't get
You
this.
can't get that. You can't,
And that's
it's
what's
not gonna
cool
be the
about
same. I had a friend of my kids actually, a friend of mine as well, grew up together. Oh, look at the weight on that. Huh? Wow, it's amazing. That's beautiful.
Yeah, this
Jesus Christ, look at
this
that.
bottling was such a success that all of our new packaging
Have the same.
came out last year
Yeah,
to emulate this beautiful V cut
yeah.
that this bottle had,
Nice.
which is
So he brought me, for my birthday, he brought me a bottle.
Mhm.
Comes in a green box.
you sent me a picture of it.
Did I send you a picture of
Edition 4.
it? Edition 4, right? Edition 4.
Spectacular. Spectacular.
That was great. You know what happened to him, the poor guy? I think it's like $180 or something like that for the bottle.
It was.
Okay.
Not anymore.
Not anymore?
No. Our Edition 1 came out just a few years ago. Our Edition 4 came out last year to commemorate the new distillery. The new distillery was on the side of the box. The point of it being green was to commemorate the distillery.
Right.
And it retailed for 130 to 180 ballpark. Edition 1 did also, which came out just a couple years before. Edition 1 is selling for $1,300 now.
You're kidding me.
That was a $100 bottle. And they're all going like this.
Bro, he bought me the bottle, and he's getting to my house, and as he's walking in, he's holding the box. It opens, the bottle falls and breaks.
No.
In my driveway.
No.
My daughter's with him. Remember, my daughter's with him, and says, "You did not just do that! Oh my God! Oh my God!" He went and he cleaned it up and this and that. He walks inside.
Poor guy.
And I see, "Hey Eddie, what's going on?" He goes, "I'll be right back." And he throws something away in the trash. He leaves. He bought another bottle. He goes, "Thank God they only had 2 bottles." They bought another bottle, came back and said, "Here you go." I go, "What was the whole ruckus going on out there? What happened?" He says, "Don't even ask. Don't even ask." And then my daughter tells me he dropped the first bottle he bought you and it broke. So he went back and got the last one they had at the place.
That's crazy.
Poor guy. But it was good. And then we all went in the pool later on that night. Just not opened up the bottle and we
That was one of my favorite ones.
Yeah.
So that one in specific was built almost in reverse to how Macallan is usually kind of put together. So instead of that one being all about sherry, it was all about the wood. So for me, that was a big, bold, round in the mouth, spectacular edition.
Oh wow.
Later on this year, we will come out with the Edition 5. So maybe we do like a revisit to this. When we have the Edition 5, and
Let's
maybe
do it.
I crack the first one together.
Yeah.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, man, for
Or
sure.
we do like a little 5-minute version of
Yeah.
that'd be cool.
No, now that I know, every time I see those editions, I'm gonna freaking buy them and put them away. Just
gone,
put them
dude.
away.
Especially people now that are collecting the 4, a set of the 4.
Really?
Charge whatever you want.
No kidding.
Well, I have collectors that are just, don't go buy it anywhere.
Wow. This
Anywhere.
is amazing.
Now this is spectacular. So this is whiskey that is basically related to this guy. So this is all American and European oak, but it's all sherry seasoned. So it's kind of a relative to this.
Right.
And so this was actually somewhere around 16 different cask styles.
Wow.
So 2 different main sources of wood for these, but all these different sizes. And like, so at the time they bottled it, it was one of the most, I guess, difficult to create Macallans that they had ever done.
Wow.
And it was, like I said, it's been like a runaway success for us.
Wow.
It's not priced at insane price points. This will retail for about $300 to $350. But this is the first of our master series, which they get a lot more rare.
Where would, like, if somebody wanted to buy these bottles, because not every liquor store carries your whole line, or do they?
It's also hard to do.
Hard to find.
Some of these get scarce.
A couple of boxes get to a store, and
I would say
they
locally we have some vintage liquors, mega liquors, Jensen's, great partners as well.
Yeah.
Big game liquors, they carry some nearby. Like there's definitely, but that's always going to be something you have to kind of call in advance and figure out.
Yeah.
Or just, or let them know I'm interested in purchasing that. So a lot of times what they'll do is the owners or managers will call us and say, listen, we have someone that's in the market for X, Y, or Z. And if we have it available, if we can get it to them, we will. But a lot of times these whiskeys that are the really sought after ones, they're gone. I mean, they go in one door and they're out the other.
Really?
And we're talking about whiskeys that people are paying $50,000-$60,000 for.
Wow.
And
wow.
It's
That's
just
crazy.
Again, I don't know what the future holds, but it looks really bright for the category, because that's the same thing. If we're doing that, and these Japanese whiskeys are fetching what they're fetching, and some of these other whiskeys are, the category's healthy. It's good. It's vibrant. It's not a bad thing. It's a good thing for everyone involved.
Yeah.
And it's what you said about the cigars. As this boom starts to expand and contract, quality will always be there.
Right.
Like the true guard of quality and consistency, it's always going to come back around.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is always, this one I will finish.
Finish that, please. Don't throw that away, my God. We don't do much with water here either.
Another thing that we'll touch on, because we are talking about cigars and stuff a lot. How do you pair a cigar with a whiskey? That's always a hot button.
You're gonna know. To me, it's my favorite cigar with my. Now, I'll tell you what. If I'm gonna smoke an Opus, which, by the way, I want to thank you for being here, and by thanking you, I want to give you one of these.
Oh, dude.
This is you probably haven't had it. They're very hard to find. This is the Opus X Super Bellicoso. That's a phenomenal cigar. That's the kind of cigar that you would pair with what we're drinking now, with the rare cask. Because all those flavors, all those, it goes. That's the way I do it. And usually when I'm going to smoke that, it'll be neat. It won't be on ice, and it'll be, whether it's 15, 18, 20, 25, whatever it is, but it's the more premium aged. Because that's what the cigar is, so it matches better with me, and then if you're going to have something that's a little lighter, you're going to have a Hemingway, you can have a Hemingway or a Rosado, you can have that with a Macallan 12, and they blend, they go great.
Yeah, the Connecticut's it's a nice daytime cigar.
Yeah,
I know you're a day and night smoker, no?
Morning, day and night. Yeah.
I know you've told me.
Yeah.
I tell people
my
all
first
the time,
one's usually at 7:30 in the morning.
on your way to work. I know you've told me.
Even before that.
Good
I wake
Lord,
up,
man.
make a coffee, and I sit outside and I'm answering emails and stuff by my pool, and I'm smoking. My first one's usually at 7:30. Then I go back inside, shower, get dressed, get ready to go to work, jump in the truck, and then I'm smoking on the way to work.
That's God bless.
Yeah.
I have cigars, I would say, probably about twice a week.
Yeah.
To be realistic, I probably have a couple a week, and then there's some, like, for example, somebody gives me an amazing cigar like this, or I have access to it, then I rope off. This means a whole meal. You know what I mean? Like when you get a great cigar, you're like, oh, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to grill out on Saturday. I'm going to relax and have a great meal. And then at the end of everything, with cigars, I always encourage people, when you're pairing it, that think of it as like a dance. So in a dance, someone has to take the lead. If two people lead, they just smack into each other, and it's not beautiful.
Right.
A beautiful dance can be either person taking the lead,
Yeah.
as long as someone is leading and someone is following, and then it's beautiful.
Yeah.
So with cigars and whiskey, it's the same exact thing.
Oh, cool.
So just think of
I
if
never
this,
thought of it that way.
think of it if this cigar, I'll usually before I choose anything, I'll take a few puffs first, and I'll see what I'm getting, and I'll be like, all right, before you, or the other way around. But
That's interesting too. Yeah, so you'll try one or the other, and depending on what you're getting is what cigar or what scotch you're going to choose.
so like if I've already had
That's
a cigar and I know what it is, then it'll point me in the right direction this way,
Wow.
but not the other way around. Because so for me, the cigar is the part I don't know. I know this,
Yeah.
unless I don't know this, then.
Yeah.
But I know what I'm gonna have.
Yeah.
Then I go, okay, first let me take a couple of puffs here and really get into some of the flavor
That
of
makes
it.
sense.
And this one is, let's say, medium to full body. It's creamy. It's spicy. It's really round, rich. I'm probably not gonna have it with a huge cigar.
Yeah.
Or maybe this one's medium, so I can.
Yeah.
But let's say you have like an older, oily Rabuto,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you're like, this is a bomb. Like that Dogma that I had, that's the one that
Yeah.
comes up. I was like, dude, it was great, but it was big,
Yeah.
and it drew slow, and I was like, cool. I think I'm gonna go with the 15, and it was perfect.
Oh,
The
cool.
15 was just kind of hanging in the background, and the cigar had the floor.
Yeah.
And then when I do a Connecticut, like you were saying, I actually go this way.
Is that right?
Yeah, I go the other way, because then the cigar, I get all of this big, beautiful flavor from the cigar, and it complements perfectly, because then it's the cigar in the background.
Right.
So it just depends on
Super cool.
ideas.
Super cool.
Ideas. None of this is in fact. None of this is.
No. It's the way you do it, and
But
it's the
just
way
an
you do it.
idea,
But it
yeah.
makes sense because the thing. I know the cigars a lot more because I drink the Scotch, but I don't know specifically what Macallan is. It is one of my scotches that I go to all the time, but not all these rare cast and double cast and stuff like that. That's a treat to be able to have those and try those all the time. I'm a Macallan 12 pretty much all the time. Cigars I know more, but I've been doing that and smoking them and smoking the same ones for much more time. So I kind of like, if it's going to be an opus, to me it's almost like a matter of respect. If I'm going to smoke an opus, I'm not going to smoke a 12-year-old.
Totally agree.
I got to go and get this is worth an 18, or this is worth Macallan
Totally
18.
agree.
This is worth whatever it is, a blue. I'm not a big blue drinker, or a Chivas 8, whatever it is.
Some big whiskey, yeah.
Big
I'm the same
whiskey,
way.
big whiskey, because there was, these two things have to be, paired correctly. So I usually go that way, and it works out for me. I love this. I love the cigar. I love the Scotch. So it's.
I would do that all the time when I was, not right now, but say like years ago, if I was planning a dinner. Now it's a little easier, have some access. If I was planning a dinner with like friends, that's going to be like 8 of us, 10 of us. It's like, then I have to go to a store and pair everything.
Really?
And I'm a nightmare. I'll be
God.
I'll be in a store for an hour and a half. Like, wait a minute. First, what are we going to start with? And what are we eating? And then, okay, cool. Then we'll go into like a Pinot or something entry level. We'll get into a bigger, rounder red.
Yeah.
We'll start off with, we'll end with this. And then at the end, you know what? I'm going to have a tawny with this cigar, because it's, something like that, like a porter, a sherry.
Yeah.
And so while I was doing that, my friends would just be like, dude, we don't care. Just pick anything.
Give me something quick.
And now my group has grown into it like a little bit. My family has as well.
Now they're
Same thing.
expecting it. Now they
Yes.
come and they go, what are you doing? What are you doing
Yeah,
today?
my family will be like, what's this? Tell me about this. Walk me through this. And I'm like, listen to you.
Yeah. That's funny. Well, you're educating them,
but it's
and you're
fun.
showing them a different
Yeah.
way that you have fun.
Yeah.
I mean, drinking is drinking. You want to have a drink, but if you get to enjoy something like this and know what you're drinking and the history of what you're drinking or what you're smoking, and where it comes from, and you're able to open up a conversation with the people you're there with and talk about that. I mean,
It's the social aspect.
It's beautiful, man. It's beautiful.
what you were talking
it's
about.
what I love,
The Cuban Coffee Effect.
Yeah.
How much more could it translate to anything than this?
Right.
Where it's like,
Right.
like I make fun of my sisters and stuff because they're vegetarian and vegan, very health conscious.
Yeah.
I say no great story ever started with, so I had a salad.
That's true.
Never.
That's true.
You'll
There's
hear
no
many
such
great
thing.
stories. You'll never hear one start like that.
Yeah.
Not that there's anything wrong with salad. You gotta have a salad. But
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Next to the steak, of course.
But when you're in these social settings, this is when this stuff is the best. You have cigars, and it should be hours when you do stuff.
Of course, of course.
So I'm a huge fan of that. Any excuse that I can do to
disconnect
with
and
friends.
You know, you work all day, you disconnect and be able to sit with friends and do this.
Phones over here.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, and just kind of hang out. It's the way to go.
Yeah. You
I'll
promised
never
to
be back. You've
promised
seen
to
the last
do the
of me. You've seen the last of me.
the what is it, the Edición 5 is going to come out sometime.
When the 5 comes out, it'll be like at the end of the year probably. Like
yeah,
close
we'll
to
do
the
it
end
again.
of the year.
Let's do it again, man. You come back and we'll give it a nice little tasting and
we'll have
stuff.
Maybe
like
we
that.
can have a couple of people over.
Sure.
Or we can do like 2 or 3 people, and
yeah,
just, not even whiskey drinkers, just fans.
Yeah, yeah.
Because you have I'm curious, like, you know, I see that you're close to all these different people. I'm like, that's the conversation I want to have.
Yeah,
you know, like with different people. It's so cool.
And let's do the event together. Let's do the fundraiser here, and get that going.
We're definitely going to do that.
Yeah,
for sure.
Brother, thank you very much, man. I really appreciate everything. I appreciate you being here, and come back soon.
We'll do, for sure. Cheers, guys.
You got it. Salute. Thank you for watching The Cuban Coffee Effect, where Cuban coffee serves as the catalyst for true and honest conversation among friends. If you enjoyed this podcast, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our page. Stay up to date by following us on all our social media at Selecta Insider DM.